Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, the place where real stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revenge come to life. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you don't want to miss what happens next in today's story. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined could happen in my own family. When I got the phone call that my sister had moved in to my house while I was gone, I thought it was a joke. But when I saw the photos my neighbor sent me, my furniture rearranged, my kitchen being used, her kids' toys all over my living room, I realized it wasn't. My sister had literally taken over my home like it was hers. I was out of town for work just 3 days, and somehow she decided my life was hers to claim. But she didn't know that I had cameras installed. She didn't know that every little thing she did, every arrogant smirk, every word she said about me, I saw it all. And she definitely didn't know that I was about to teach her what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. Tell me, would I be wrong for what I did next? It all started a week before that. I had to go on a short business trip to another state, just 4 days total. I live alone in the house my parents left me after they passed. It's not huge, but it's comfortable. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, and a kitchen that I'd renovated myself. My sister, Lisa, has always been the difficult one. You know the type, entitled, dramatic, and convinced the world owes her something. She's 2 years younger than me, a single mom with 2 kids, and constantly bouncing between jobs and boyfriends. I've always tried to help her where I could, loaning her money, babysitting her kids, even letting her crash at my place for a few days when she needed to get her life together. But this time she went too far. Before I left, I texted her that I'd be away and asked her to check my mail if she had time. She said sure, no problem. I thought that was the end of it. I even left a spare key under the flower pot in case of emergencies, something she knew about. I guess that's where I made my mistake, trusting her. Because when I came back, it wasn't my house anymore. The first clue something was off came from my neighbor, Mrs. Collins, who lives across the street. She's this sweet older lady who always keeps an eye on things, like a neighborhood guardian. She called me on the second day of my trip and asked, "Sweetheart, are you back home already? I saw your sister's car outside and a moving truck earlier." My stomach dropped. "A moving truck?" I asked, thinking she was mistaken. "Yeah," she said. "A big white one. They were carrying boxes inside all afternoon." I remember staring at my phone in disbelief. Lisa hadn't said a word about needing the house. I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. I figured maybe she was just storing something there for a few hours. But later that night, when I checked my home security cameras, my jaw nearly hit the floor. There she was, Lisa, walking into my living room, holding a box, wearing her pajamas like she owned the place. Her kids ran around, shouting, "This is our new home!" And then I heard her voice. "Yup! Annie doesn't need this big place all to herself. We're staying here now." That's when the anger started bubbling. I watched her open my fridge, move my food aside, and start rearranging my cabinets. She even told her boyfriend, who came over later, "We might as well make this official. I'm not giving it back. She's had it easy long enough." I didn't know what to do right away. I was furious, but I was also hundreds of miles away. I couldn't just drop everything and fly back that second. So I waited. I collected evidence. I watched as she brought in her furniture, dumped my belongings in boxes, and even posted on social media. "Finally moving into our new place. Fresh start." The comments were full of congratulations. No one knew it wasn't hers. By the time I got home 3 days later, my house felt wrong. Her car was in my driveway. My welcome mat was gone. There were kids' shoes scattered across the porch. I walked up and knocked on my own door, and it was Lisa who opened it. She looked at me like I was the intruder. "Oh, you're back early," she said awkwardly. I didn't even step inside yet. "What's going on, Lisa?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "You moved in." She rolled her eyes. "Relax. It's just temporary. You weren't using it anyway. My lease was up and I had nowhere else to go. You can crash at a friend's or something for a bit. You don't even need this much space." I was so stunned I couldn't even speak. She genuinely believed that my home, left to me in our parents' will, was now hers because she needed it more. I told her to pack up her things and leave, but she laughed. "I already changed the locks," she said. "And you can't legally kick me out without notice." My heart started pounding. She'd actually looked up tenant rights and squatter laws. She thought she was protected. So I walked away without another word. I didn't want a screaming match in front of her kids. I stayed the night at a friend's apartment and started planning. Because if she thought she could outsmart me, she was in for a rude awakening. Here's the thing, Lisa wasn't on the deed. She wasn't paying rent and she had no legal tenancy. But she didn't know that. She thought she could claim the place just by being there. So I decided to let her dig her own grave. I started by letting my lawyer know what was happening. He advised me to avoid direct confrontation and collect proof that she was occupying the property without permission, which I already had, thanks to the cameras. For the next 3 days I watched. I saw her host little housewarming dinners, where she bragged about her new home. I saw her boyfriend lounging on my couch, drinking beer. And the worst part? She'd gone into my bedroom and put my things in garbage bags. Garbage bags. That's when the hurt hit deeper than the anger. It wasn't just about the house anymore, it was about respect. The house was the last piece of our parents I had left. Every corner of it had memories. And she treated it like a hotel. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and tell me, what would you have done if your own sibling took over your home like it was theirs? Would you confront them, or would you wait and strike back quietly like I did? Because I waited. And it was worth it. I called the police the next morning, but as expected, they said it was a civil matter, since she was a relative who had been allowed access before. They couldn't remove her without a court order. Fine. I didn't need the police. I needed a plan. I contacted a locksmith and arranged for a lock change for the following Friday, once my lawyer had filed the proper paperwork to prove unlawful occupation. But that's not even the best part. I also found out her boyfriend had some, let's just say, shady activities. He'd been using my address to receive packages. Suspicious ones. So I let the authorities know about that too. They started an investigation quietly, and I didn't say a word to Lisa. 3 days later, the knock on the door that changed everything came. It was early morning when a white SUV pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. They knocked on the door, and I watched the entire scene unfold from my car parked down the street. Lisa opened the door, still in her robe, her hair a mess. The moment she saw the badges, her face went pale. Her boyfriend stumbled out from the kitchen, trying to act casual, but it didn't take long before they were both panicking. Turns out, those packages contained illegal prescription drugs. They weren't addressed in his name, but the delivery records led to my house, technically her residence now, according to her social media posts. The cops didn't need much more than that. I stayed quiet until they left, and then I walked up to my front door. The same door she'd slammed in my face days ago. This time, she wasn't laughing. Her kids had been picked up by her friend, and she was standing on the porch crying, swearing she didn't know what was in those boxes. I believed her about that part, but it didn't change what she'd done. She looked at me, desperate, and said, "Please, can I just stay until I figure things out? I have nowhere else to go." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But I couldn't let her manipulate me again. I told her the same thing she told me earlier that week. "You can crash at a friend's or something. You don't need this much space." The look on her face said it all. Shock, regret, and the dawning realization that she'd lost everything, not because I'd taken it, but because of her own greed. The officers told her she'd need to cooperate for questioning, and she left with them shortly after. Her boyfriend wasn't as lucky, he was arrested on the spot. Once the house was empty again, I stepped inside. The air felt heavy, like the house itself had been violated. I walked through every room, taking in the mess she'd made. My furniture was scratched, walls covered in crayon marks, dishes piled high in the sink. But I didn't care. I was home. Over the next few weeks, I cleaned, repainted, and replaced what was damaged. Slowly, the place started to feel like mine again. Lisa tried calling me a few times after that. leaving voicemails about how she didn't mean for things to go that far and how she just needed a break. I never called her back. Our relationship had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I heard later from our aunt that she ended up moving in with a friend out of town, and eventually she got a small apartment. I'm glad she's okay, but I also hope she learned that taking advantage of people, especially family, has consequences. Sometimes I still think about that knock on the door. About the way she panicked, realizing too late that her little scheme had blown up in her face. It wasn't revenge I felt that day, it was closure. Watching karma do its job without me lifting a finger. So, what do you think? Was I too harsh? Or did my sister get exactly what she deserved? Because from where I'm standing, I think I was more patient than most people would have been. If you were on my side, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your own family tried to steal your home? Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.